Let's go. And we're back. I've got my guy H. Harry, how you doing? It's always a pleasure. He's been on the channel for a number of years. We always do content, but in dark times, you know what? It's weird, Harry, because I think you're very level-headed. So when things are not going well at our football club, I love having you at the platform because you will talk about the obvious and kind of have an outward view. So I'm delighted we're here when actually things are going great for the football club, man. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good, man. Good. Just enjoying it at the moment, as we've got to, isn't it? Like we've waited such a long time to see Arsenal, back at the top table, competing for trophies regularly, feeling as though we're going to win trophies. Obviously, there's a lot of work still to be done, but we're in a great place. We've set ourselves up about as well as we could have hoped going into this kind of business end of the season. And yeah, let's enjoy it. Let's enjoy it.
Like you said, let's enjoy it. As Mikel Arteta said it, people. Harry's YouTube channel is in the description. We had a show on his platform. Go and check that out, as well as all the other content he does. He's got a very good intro. I was bopping my head in the beginning of his intro. I wanted to ask you, though, before we talk about the obvious, I wanted to ask you, like, am I, or Arsenal fans, obviously we've been starved of trophies and we're actually being competitive and falling short in recent years. My first one is, does this year feel different? Like, before we talk about tactics and obviously we're in a final, does it feel different to you?
Yeah, it does. It feels like what's required to win is different to what it has been in recent years. I feel like in the past, it was like if you were Liverpool or you were Man City and you played brilliant attacking football and you could score goals for fun, you had a chance. Whereas I feel like football in general has gone in a slightly different direction, at least in the Premier League, whereby we now look at teams and we think very few are able to produce the consistency level. Now, the base point of producing consistency is don't lose, be resilient, be resolute. And so I feel like, sometimes we've probably, I don't know, sometimes we've been a really, really good team, but maybe not had the specific components that we needed to get over the line. Whereas I feel like the stars have aligned a little bit for us this time around. We got the better squad, obviously. That's on the club for going out and investing the way that they did. But we're now facing a sort of Premier League that actually plays to our strengths in a lot of ways. And we're sticking out above the rest as a result of the strengths that we have. So yeah, it does feel different because stylistically, I feel like we're the right type of team to win now. Also, that makes you a really good cup team. And we've seen that in the Champions League. We've been really good so far. We're in the final of the League Cup. It feels like the stars have aligned this season. And as much as it's not done yet, and I don't want to be sort of tempting fate in February, if we didn't end up with some success this season, I'd be bitterly disappointed. And we'd have to take a long, hard look at ourselves to figure out as to why.
Am I greedy for Harry? Obviously, I'd bite your arm off for one bit of silverware, ideally the Premier or the Champs. Am I being greedy if I think maybe as a minimum, like you could get the Premier League and the League Cup? Like, am I being greedy for thinking we can get multiple silverwares, or is it like we're that team?
No, I think when you look at the position that we're in, I don't think it's greedy to expect that or to suggest that. I think you've always got to be wary of the fact that it's not an easy thing to do. But at the same time, you look at how we're competing right now and how things are going for us. It's hard not to get carried away, right? Exactly. And as Mikel Arteta said a few weeks back after that Manchester United game, we've got to enjoy it. And for me, we talked about this earlier, but for me, that was the kind of reset mentally that I needed. There'd been this build up, hadn't there? There was the Liverpool game, and then there was the Nottingham Forest game, and then there was the Manchester United game, and it felt like by the time we got to the end of that Man United game, where having fought our way back, we ended up throwing it away late on. You felt like maybe this was the beginning of the end, and we had to get back on track. We did that. Credit to the team, but I think mentally we kind of needed that reset. And people keep talking about the anxiety in the stadium, that's going to be a problem and all the rest of it. You cannot help that. As a fan, you cannot help that. Have you ever sat and watched an Arsenal game and never let out a groan or some sort of complaint or reacted to a moment of joy? We are fans. We are going to react.
We're human beings as well. I'm so happy you mentioned that, man.
At the end of the day, it's on, and I said this after that run of 3 games, it's on the players, it's on the individuals to go out there and produce the kind of moments that are going to settle those nerves. That's what top players do. That's what top teams do. And we went out at Leeds and we put in a performance that settled a lot of people's nerves. And that's what is required sometimes to sort of kill that anxiety. You can't avoid it entirely. You can manage it. And the best way to manage it is to go out and produce as players and give people reason to feel confident and believe in what you're doing.
It's funny you mentioned the Man United, Nottingham Forest and Leeds game, because obviously the performance wasn't quite there, let alone the points we amassed to the available points that were on show. I do think fans get in a bit of a dream world and think every team, and of course, you know, regardless what team you support, you want your team to win every game and things like that. And we know as Arsenal fans, definitely in the last 3 years, excluding now, how you can be good and still not necessarily win things. Even Liverpool, they got 90 odd points and still lost to City. So I do understand thinking about those 3 games, you know, dropping points in the last 15 minutes against Sunderland, Aston Villa away, etc., etc. But a week is a long time. And, you know, me and you both work in broadcasting. We see when we lose or when we trip up, it's all crisis, it's all over. Suddenly, after everything was a crisis against United, we're still top. Granted, it's gone from 7 points to 6. We're in a cup final. As you said there, we shock it out the system immediately, battered Leeds, beat Kairat. I think the Inter Milan would have correlated after the United game. I could be wrong, but either way, we're just putting points on the board. I wanted to ask you, bit of a twofold question. What have you made about Arsenal purely on the eye test? Because I'm a bit in two minds, you know. Again, I do a lot of nitpicking. I think in the grand scheme of things, I like Arteta. Arteta is doing his thing. It is what it is. I think naturally you're going to nitpick with a manager. Oh, can we get Eze and Odegaard together? Can we play a bit more attacking? But in the grand scheme of things, like the macro, I'm cool with what you're doing. I just look at my players and I look at how we're playing, whether we've won, lost, or drawn. And I think, you know what, as critical as I am about the negatives and obviously happy about the positives, look at where we're at. 8 from 8, top of the table. FA Cup we're still in. League Cup we're in the final. I just feel if we could go up the gears, no one can kind of stop us this season. But what have you made of our performances? And do you think there will be an uptake, or do you think it's just a thing of, you know what, if they do call this ugly, just get the job done. If it wins silverware, who really cares? Or like, are you kind of waiting for it to go up the gears? Or yeah, man, where's your thoughts with that?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I'm not.
Oh.
Have you lost me there, or are we good?
Are we still here?
Yeah.
Oh, you're back. Yeah, no, you was lost temporarily. Go again, man.
Sorry. I was just going to say, like, I'd like to think that we're going to shift up into another gear. And I'd like to think that there's still more to come from this Arsenal side. And I'm hoping, I suppose, that we see that shift March, April, May, which is when you really, really need it. You know, in previous years, we've probably seen a downward shift in terms of Arsenal, maybe running out of gas at that point in the season. So have we learnt from the past? Have we better managed people as a result of having a better squad, which should, in theory, mean higher energy levels? Is confidence a factor? I think it is in sort of your performance levels as well. So, yeah, look, I'd like to see more. But it kind of goes back to what we were just saying about the style. What is needed today is not exactly what was needed 3 or 4 years ago.
Exactly.
In terms of your strengths. And I just think that this whole eye test thing, I'm not going to say I get frustrated when people bring it up, because I think it's a valid conversation. But I think it's a broader and wider conversation about the state of the Premier League. And I think we need to have that conversation rather than constantly going, Arsenal are bad, or you know, or they're stinking the place out, or whatever. Right. I mean, Chelsea came to Emirates Stadium, and I know when we spoke earlier, you said that you thought Rossini's approach was all right, but you came in a game that you were losing and you set up with a back 5.
And now, that's our fault.
Yeah. Now, each to their own, right? If that's the way that Rossini thought was best, if anything, that's a compliment to Arsenal that he figured he had to stay in the game for as long as possible, and hopefully
exactly that.
We'd take that as a compliment. But my point is that why is it always a style issue when it's Arsenal, but with everyone else it's okay? There's a trend in the Premier League with regards to set pieces being a major focus, long throw-ins, low blocks. These are all things that have come into focus league-wide. And so I think it's Premier League football in general that has changed. And I think we've just adapted to be able to cope with that. And because we're the leaders in a lot of those areas,
and we're not rubbish anymore,
defensive resilience, etc., we're almost getting labeled as the sort of reason for this style becoming prevalent nowadays. But it's a wider issue, I think.
You're right, man. And you would think Arsenal are the only team to score from set pieces or dead balls, or think this is anything unique to football. We always talk about fine margins, and I think a lot of people mention fine margins, yeah, and they don't actually know what that means. A set piece is a fine margin. You know, granted, you just kind of alluded to it. I want to see us play quote unquote attacking football on a more consistent basis. But if there's times it's not happening or we can't break down a low block and a set piece gets us out of jail, granted, fair enough. Obviously, Arsenal have to find ways to break down stubborn defenses. That isn't something we've learned this season. We've been probably dealing with that for the last 3 years. But as you said there, if people want us to play great football, open up against us, you know. But you don't want to do that, which when you remove kind of the fanfare, as you said there, it is a compliment. And you kind of lightly touched on it, and it made me think you're actually right. How many football games are entertaining? Entertainment don't pay these managers bills. It doesn't keep them in jobs. It doesn't really make sense, you know. In terms of entertainment, what I would say City, Fulham probably comes to mind. You maybe could say Arsenal United in terms of the goal quality. Definitely for a neutral, Spurs versus City, probably even United, Fulham. But generally, every game is, you know, I know football's decided in both ends, but both typically every game is the midfield's packed out. There's fine margins. It's kind of a nothing game. So I do make you right in that that's not an Arsenal thing, even though it's not cool to say that. That is just where football is at this moment in time. And that's a testament to, I would say, almost every team in the league, because I know some managers have got sacked, but almost every manager has a bit of clout in their own right. It's not like you've got a small section of elite managers at elite clubs. You know, people rate Areola, people rate this one, people rate that one. So I think people are disingenuous. And to be fair with you, as much as I want us to go up the gears, people are just angry that we're not losing and we're not a soft touch. And I've said this to you before. I actually think we could go up the gears defensively. You know, I don't think we're anywhere near. Maybe statistically we are. We're probably better, but I don't think where we was defensively last year. So you won't catch me complaining. And if it wins trophies, great. And I must admit, Harry, I know this is a bit childish, but the more they kind of call us boring, say we score from set pieces, I kind of just want to see that more, just to see them kind of cry even more. So long may it continue, man. But let's not even focus on that, man. I want to ask you this.
You're absolutely right. I was just going to say, you're absolutely right on that. It is, the more people moan about it, the more you want to see us.
Yeah, I love it, Harry, man.
That way, because it just people just love to hate us, and that's fine. And you know, they can feel however they want to feel. But for me, I don't care. You know, we've not won a league in 20 years. I don't think we're really in a position to be sitting there going, oh, you know what? We need to win it this way. No, win it first. And then if we win it this year, next year, if you want to say, okay, now it's time to see a little bit more from Arsenal, by all means, that's fair. But let's just win it first.
Exactly, man. And it's so ugly. It's beautiful, man. When you win it, then you can say, oh, I want to play tick-a-tacker and that. Just get the job done. And we're kind of, it's before Mikel Arteta's time in that well, to be fair, he was probably a player. When we did play pretty football, when our football was up there with Europe and ultimately we didn't win anything, what was we told? We're naive, we're not street smart, we're not this, we're not that, we're not the third. So you can't have your cake and eat it, man. I understand the actual proper football fans who have legitimate criticisms, whether they're Arsenal fans or fans in general. I just think a lot of it is agenda-driven drivel. And if I'm completely honest with you, would I say we're the most entertaining Arsenal side I've seen in my life? No, but I genuinely, Harry, don't think people are watching games. Like the amount of goals we scored on occasion, the football we've played in occasion, especially in Europe, you're not watching football. You might be watching football via an app where it's saying goals have gone in and this one from a set piece. You can't really be watching us. We're not that bad. Away from that though, Harry, man, I did want to ask you, like, how does it feel to obviously, like, even seeing this, we've reached our first final since 2020, people. Like, is it a surreal moment? Is it a full circle moment? How does it feel initially to be back in a final? Like, we're where we want to be in. Well, we want to get over the line, but we're in the stages we want to be in.
Yeah, look, it was a great night. It's a great outcome, and we're in the final. And the fact that it's the first one in 6 years means that it's another step in the right direction. But we got to win it.
Exactly.
I'm not for a second begrudging people that celebrated the other night. I did. I loved it. It was great. That's what football's about. Go out there, enjoy it. If you don't, as I keep saying, what the hell is the point? When the times are good, lap it up, enjoy it. But we got to go out and win it. So does it feel like a massive thing for me right now today? Probably not. It feels like another step in the right direction, but we have to complete the journey essentially. So I think maybe I'll feel differently when I see the players walking out at Wembley and think, geez, I've missed this. You know, this has been ages. I've really missed this. Let's go out there and let's get it done. But yeah, it's at the moment it's just another step, and I think that's how the players have got to look at it. I think it's fine to let out that emotion and to enjoy the moments as they come along the way, but then you got to be really good at sort of clearing the slate and going again. Nothing is won yet, not in the Premier League, not in the League Cup, not in the Champions League, not in the FA Cup. So it's still very much work, and that's the kind of key, I think, message. And I think that's what Mikel will be drilling into him as well. You know, he wants it as badly as anybody. He wants people to stop questioning him. He wants people to stop saying, you know, he's never going to win a trophy, etc., etc. But he's got to keep them level-headed and feet on the ground.
It's like watching people run 200 meters, and like where Arsenal at, we're in the driving seat, we're in pole position, but we're coming around that last bend. Just put your left foot in front of your right and just stay composed, and hopefully we can get that. Now, beyond the obvious reasons for wanting to win silverware, Harry, and all of that kind of jazz, yeah, a bit of a double-edged question, you know, because you could argue beyond the obvious, we win this League Cup, it gives us a boost, it gasses the players, it whets the appetite for more silverware, it drives us on in the, I'm mainly thinking primarily the Premier League and the domestic competitions, maybe say in the Champions League. You could be devil's advocate and flip it and say, obviously, if you lose to City, you're going to have to pick your head up, but it could be demoralizing. Where are you at with that?
Yeah, look, I think it can go either way. In terms of how you respond to it, I think if you're really mentally resolute, you can bounce back from it and say, we've lost the Carabao Cup final to them. There's no way that they're getting this league title from us. We're in the driving seat for that. And, you know, let's go and get it. I also think the dynamic of it depends on what the Premier League looks like by then.
Exactly.
You know, you're talking another month and a half away. So, you know, will Arsenal be 9 points clear? Will Arsenal be 2 points clear? You don't know, right? So I think for that reason, it's very difficult to kind of preempt what the future holds in terms of how we deal with it mentally and stuff. But I think we can use it as fuel either way, as long as the attitude and mindset is right. I think Manchester City would be better at brushing it off and going again than we would, because they've been there, done it, and won this thing a ton of times. So I do worry a little bit about the jeopardy that's involved in this final now, because of the confidence issue and what it could do to us going into the run-in. But at the same time, every time I think about it and try and process it in my mind and figure it out, I keep coming back to the point of you can't win anything without facing some jeopardy at some point. So you can't be scared of the failure. If you're afraid of failure, then you'll never take that leap. And if you never take that leap, there's no chance in you ever getting where you want to get to. So I think it's just part and parcel of it, right? That's the reality of the world that we live in. If you want to win, there's also a chance that you're going to lose, and that's football.
And I always say, like, not to make it political, but it's like when Arteta first walked in, like, even, well, no, he wasn't even here, but when we was in the last final against them, that was third world problems. The basics that probably we take for granted at Arsenal at this moment in time, we're not there. Players looking like they're on it, consistency, yada, yada, yada. Kind of what you're saying. For me, and it's a good thing, that's first world problems. Like, if you, as much as it will break my heart if we lose a final, bro, you want to be here playing and competing for trophies, being in finals, having that jeopardy, talking about how much it could give you a boost if you win, or what could happen when you lose. This is the good, the bad, and the ugly of wanting to suffer from success now. So I'm all for that. Hopefully, you know, the scoreline can reverse after the 2018 one. I did want to ask you as well, yeah, like, I did see this, that if Arsenal and Man City are drawn on the same side of the Champions League knockouts, there's a chance we could face them 3 times in it. So we know we got to play them at the Etihad. We know potentially you play them twice in the quarterfinals, and you've got the League Cup, apologies, and maybe even the FA Cup. Is this now a proper rivalry? Is this now where we're at? Like, okay, City first used to kind of slap us on our heads and say, you lot are good boys. Then we saw we used to beat them, and we used to see the scenes, you know, Miles Lewis, Skelly and Haaland, the poster boys. Now we're kind of going into it against them. Like, how do you feel about kind of being in this realm and playing them and doing all that kind of stuff?
They're a top team, and you're going to face them if you want to win things, and they're always going to be in your way. And that's the reality. Again, you know, I'm trying not to, because I don't want to play them, right? I don't want to play them in a final. I don't want to play them at any point. Okay, if in an ideal world I could erase that fixture, I would, because it's the one fixture in the Premier League that, even with their form this season, I'm a bit afraid of, because I know they've got the quality within their ranks to do damage. I know they've got a top manager. I know they've got top players.
And there's bad blood there.
And there is, and it's developed, hasn't it? And it's sort of grown in recent times. And the way it's all sort of gone up and down in terms of this fixture, we've gone from us being accused of going there playing for a draw to us sort of holding on and getting that draw when we defended with 10 men for such a long period of time and being seen as a really resolute side. Then we thrashed them at the Emirates
and got hated for it.
we thrashed them at the Emirates, which was brilliant. And then the last time they came to the Emirates earlier this season, they got their noses in front. We needed a late equalizing goal. But the story of that game was Manchester City on the back foot, sitting back, defending deep. So it's funny how the fixture has come full circle in terms of the way that the two teams approach it and the perceptions of the two sides. But it's not a fixture that I like. I don't want to play them in the Champions League. I feel like the biggest threat to us being successful in the Champions League is fellow Premier League clubs.
Even Liverpool would say that, man.
Yeah, even Liverpool in that competition, I worry about.
I don't want to play them in the Champs.
Exactly. You don't want to go to Anfield in the Champions League, do you? So there's, these are the games that you want to avoid ideally. But unfortunately, if you want to get, again, as I keep saying, to that final destination, you're going to have to confront your problems. Manchester City are going to be a problem for us if we're going to go on and have the season that we're hoping for. And it is what it is. You just got to deal with it. You just got to get over the line. You just got to beat them. And I would say just avoid losing to them in the Premier League. You don't even need to go to the Etihad and win. And look at our position versus theirs. You just need to avoid defeat. And then again, people are going to say, well, you're inferior to them. You're afraid of them. You went for a draw, blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, that's the reality. That's the reality of the situation, isn't it?
You don't always have to, again, obviously there are times like I've said this to you before, like I'm quite peed off we didn't beat City at the Emirates because I think we conceded the stupid goal. I think the whole team, including the manager, could have done better in the first half. Second half was superb. Ultimately, it was a share of the spoils, but you don't have to win all of these games. We've seen times where we've been great against the top six, and it's not been the top six games hasn't been why we haven't won the league or vice versa. I've seen teams, not just us, but have a kind of mixed bag in against the top six, but they've done better in the other comps. Like you don't need to win every battle. Sometimes you just need to win the war. I did want to ask you, obviously Arsenal have won their first two-legged semi-final in any competition for the first time under Mikel Arteta. Does that show his development as a manager, or maybe obviously not really coaching and whatnot? And I know people are going to laugh at this, but an element of, okay, cool, it's now I'm able to get over the line. I'm becoming a different version of myself as much as these players, as we go from being a good team to a great team and trying to make history and whatnot.
Yeah, it's probably a complex that he's had to deal with. He's probably looking at that you're showing on the screen, the record, the history of it, and thinking that don't bode well. But what can I do differently? Like I've managed each of those ties to the best of my ability, but we keep falling short. So what do? Chelsea was always going to be tough over two legs. I mean, a lot of people sort of made us strong favourites from the beginning, but Chelsea are the kind of side that on their day can beat anyone. We've seen that many, many times. Again, they've got great players. So I think for Mikel Arteta, this was a step on a personal level as well. Exactly. You talk about the team and getting to the final for the first time in 6 years. It's the first time this team really has got to a final, and that's obviously significant. But we often forget, don't we, that this is the manager's first time around as well. He won the FA Cup.
Even with the fans there as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's still a relatively new manager. And I know that 5-6 years into the job nowadays is seen as you're a bit of a dinosaur. You're a long stay. You've been there for ages.
When in reality, respectfully to Arteta, you're a bit of a baby as a manager. You've been in the managerial thing 6 years. What is that in managerial years?
No, absolutely. But not only that, he's got to learn on the job, because there are things that even in that 6-year period, if you've experienced most things, there are still going to be things that you haven't experienced. There are still going to be things that are new to you. And I look back at some of those semi-finals that you got up on the screen. The Villarreal one wasn't acceptable.
Smith Rowe false nine. That Arteta
hated
I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, absolutely hated it. But Arsenal were a different team then, you got to say. The Carabao Cup one against Liverpool, the home result was really disappointing after we went away and got a really positive result. So that was annoying. The Newcastle one, we got battered. There's no excuse for that. Terrible. PSG one, we put in a valiant effort. I can't come away from that saying that Mikel got that wrong when you consider the players that we had missing as well. And PSG went on. Yeah, and PSG went on to absolutely murder Inter in the final and won the Champions League deservedly. But again, when you asked me earlier if I think it feels different, this is probably why. Because I don't see those things happening as often. I don't see those things being the most likely outcome, because I feel like we've got a resilience about us now that is just different. It's just different. We've got different options, different things going for us, and we've got the tools that make us well equipped in the Premier League, which is turning into a very specific type of league at the moment. But
Yeah.
we've also got the ability to play or be physical, which I think sets us up really, really well in the Champions League, because players that don't want to face that physical battle, who are forced to face it against us, are going to be unsettled and unnerved by that. So I think we've got the best of both worlds at the moment. Have we had to compromise a little bit on our attacking play to
Million
build up
percent.
this physical and robust side? Yeah. But I actually still think right now, this season, in this sort of era that we're playing in, it's kind of more important to be able to do a bit of both.
Exactly. And again, well, I've never been a manager, but I think in theory it's easier to coach a good attacking side than a defensive side, because I think defensively, you got to press from the front. You've obviously got to be a bit more street smart. You got to be a lot more disciplined. Of course, you do in an attacking sense, but I think you can be more free-willed and free-spirited, if that makes sense. And I know everyone talks about the debut season of Jesus and Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko because of the football we played. Even me, I do that. I would like to see elements of that football back. But I do think there's a lot of rose tints, Harry, in the sense that everyone forgets there was a lot of those games we might be amazing in the first half, put the team to bed. The second half is just really Ramsdale versus the opposition. So there needed to be that necessary trade-off. And I think we've been ahead of the game, because I think Arteta's looked at it and said, you know what, football's resetting. It's getting physical again. It's getting to that kind of thing. Even Pep, he's going for more dynamic and strong kind of wingers rather than the more cute and clevery, even like when he shifted Bernardo Silva out there. So I think generally, and we said this on your platform, make sure you're subscribing. People can have their criticisms. I think people are just mad that Arsenal are one of the best in it. And this is why in this country, I don't like listening to the media and just football opinions, because I think they're disingenuous. I think if anyone wants to know how Arsenal is genuinely viewed, just go and look at how managers speak about us and how we're spoken about around the world or around Europe. I think Guillaume Balaguer did a great piece the other day on such. I know we're pressed for time, yeah? So I did want to ask you a couple of things. My first thing for you is, how are you feeling about Sunderland?
Yeah, like I'm feeling pretty good. Sunderland are going to be tough opposition. Obviously, gave us a tough game at the Stadium of Light. It was a game that we really should have won, having come back from a goal down, and
15
we
minutes
couldn't.
away.
Yeah, we couldn't quite hold on to that, and that was frustrating and disappointing. But they were in a great vein of form. I still think they haven't been beaten at home, so that says a lot about sort of the task that we faced when we went
Doing
there.
very well.
But I fancy us at home in front of our own fans, and knowing what Man City have to come on Sunday. I'm not saying that Liverpool are definitely going to beat them, but just that there's a potential for us to extend that lead again should be motivation enough. And I don't really know what else the manager needs to say. That's the motivation. That's the incentive. Go out and get your job done. Turn up the heat on Manchester City before they go to Anfield. And if you don't want to if you can't handle heat, you definitely don't want to be walking out at Anfield when you're trying to deal with that. So yeah, I think it could be in the key word, a really special weekend for Arsenal again.
Fingers, toes, and everything crossed. My last question for you is, obviously we all knew you didn't have to be a journalist or have any sort of street smartness to know we're not getting Tonali in January. But I did want to ask you, what do you make of Tonali and Julian Alvarez links? And do you think those are two players we could go for in the summer?
I like the Julian Alvarez link a lot. He's a player that I wanted us to sign last summer, but obviously that was never going to happen given the money that would have needed to be involved. And in the end, we went with Victor Gyökeres. I've always liked Alvarez. I really rate him. I think he's that halfway house between an out-and-out number 9 and the kind of false 9 that Mikel likes, who can drop deep, who can roam a bit. I think he can do both sides of the game, which is what I really like about him. On Tonali, this is an interesting one, because I wouldn't have thought that he was on our radar, if I'm being honest, until we heard what we did over the last few days, which was that his agent had sort of had some kind of dialogue and conversation with Arsenal, which his agent denied, by the way. But then David Ornstein came out yesterday and said, no, we've checked directly with Tonali's camp and they're fine with our reporting. So, you don't know who to believe at this stage. But
exactly,
Newcastle are a club, DG, that have got all this wealth behind them, but cannot use it. And that is a massive problem for them, because it's only a matter of time before the likes of Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, as much as they say they love it there, and they really feel the love and the passion from the supporters, there will come a point where they look at their date of birth and think, you know what, I kind of need to get out there and win some silverware. And they're going to be agitating for a move the way that Isak did. And what that does is weaken your negotiation position as a football club. So you can say, well, he's not going anywhere, he's not for sale, blah, 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 blah. But Newcastle had to cave on Isak in the end. And those players who might not have liked that at the time, the likes of Tonali, Guimaraes, they're all looking at that. They know that that's happened. They probably know more about it than we do, having witnessed it from behind the scenes. And when their moment and time comes where they want to move, talk of Arsenal or anybody stumping up 100 million is crazy, because once Tonali or anybody else kicks up a fuss, you have to sell them. And that means that your price is going to be negotiated down. So is it a possibility? I think it is. I think it is a possibility. What that deal would be done at price-wise, I have no idea. But he's a good player. I like him. I just didn't know of any previous interest in him. So I'm a bit surprised that what's been said over the last week or so has come out.
Like you said, man, like I was baffled by it, but when I felt like it was agent led, I guess he's a player that you're gonna kind of talk about. I always equate Newcastle to, if you went to a party, you never want to leave a party when the lights have turned on. Obviously, as you said, Isak has kept it moving. Gomares will keep it moving, and Tonali will be one to watch. For what it's worth, I think he'll be great in our side. We knew we wasn't really going to get anyone in January. We've got what we've got. Harry, it's been a great one, but a short one. You know, I'd love to have you here longer, but it's been amazing. Where can people find you before you get out of him, okay?
Yeah, check it out. The Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. We do episodes most days. I'm not going to say daily because we do skip the odd day, but most days. You can find it on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the usual places.
So go follow it on everything, people. His YouTube channel is in the title. Go and do that. Harry's got to be Superman, so we're going to let him get out of here. Like, comment, subscribe. H, bless, until the next time, man. In a bit, my guy. Up the Gunners, man. Always like